and for giving your time, and much appreciated. Okay, so let's start off with just a few housekeeping kind of rules. It seems that you're all experts on Zoom already. Maybe you've been using it a lot over the last week or so. I'm Rasheed Ogunlaru, coach, speaker, and author. I'm one of the business partners, external delivery partners, the British Library's Business and IP Centre, which this webinar is being run in proud association with. And today's session is on compassion, inner peace, and well-being, which is so important for us when we're our own boss, when we're running our own business at the best of times, but I guess it's particularly important in the challenging and unusual times that we find ourselves in now. Just a few pieces of housekeeping then. You're all on mute at the moment. Welcome to the people who've just joined us. I've just invited people to put themselves on mute. The session's going to be running between now and 11. Hopefully you can stay with us until 11. If you need to leave before 11, then of course, then we'll wish you all the best, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy the rest of this on playback. Hiya. Hi there, Alex. Hopefully I'm going to be encouraging other people to join us with video cameras later on too. So I'm glad that you're keen, that we can all get to see each other. And I'm just going to invite you all to, in fact, we've got more people coming in even as we speak. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to start off by kicking off with a few opening thoughts and a few opening words. But what would be really, really useful for me is if you would be happy to type into the chat bar what's brought you along here today and what it is that you'd like from today's session. So if there's anything that particularly drew you along to this session today, it would be great for you to type it in. But by the way, the things in the chat bar, when this is recorded, nobody else will be able to see. So you can say whatever it is you like in the chat bar. But whilst you're doing that, just again, to give you a bit of a flow, an idea of the flow of today. So the session runs between now and 11 a.m. Probably between, I'm going to start off by giving you a bit of introduction. Those of you who've just joined us, I'm going to invite you to put your microphone onto mute. So right at the bottom, see that there's a microphone symbol, bottom row on the left. If you just mute that, and then later on there's going to be an opportunity to unmute yourselves as you're going to be able to ask questions on what you on any of the content today. So really, just whilst you're typing in anything that you would like from today's session, I'm just going to kind of kick us off a little bit. For those of you who just joined, I'm Rasheed Ogunlaru, life coach, business coach, motivational speaker. My first background was in media and PR, then I was a singer and performer, and for about the last 15 or so years, I've been a coach, working with all sorts of people. People are starting and running their own business, people in the workplace, managers, leaders, household names, TV personalities, you name it. And this issue about life balance, well-being, compassion is going to be a key issue for any of us. And of course, the times that we're in make it really, really, really pronounced. So I've just been inviting you to type in your comments of what it is that's brought you along today and what it is that you'd like from today. And so I'm just going to read a few of those things out to kick us off with. So, yeah, Daniel, you've said that interested in well-being, would like to hear other people deal with it with working from home. Yeah. Alex has said, keen to learn more about establishing a healthy routine whilst working from home. Yeah, absolutely. Andy said, never joined one of these talks before. Well, very, very welcome. Glad that you're here. Alice has said positivity and motivation and encouraging healthy mindset as this is foreseeable, as this is for the foreseeable future, I guess. Yeah, I guess this thing about having a really good healthy mindset is going to be really important for the period of time, particularly that we find ourselves here as we are. Anyone else who's just joined us, I'm going to invite you just to put your self on mute for the time being, and the mute is on the bottom on the left hand side. Kelly adds, interested to know what good practice is when you're having a particularly negative and challenging day. Really, really good point. And those challenges will come along for everyone. Okay, I just want to kind of kickstart things here, just with a few thoughts. Let me just, I'm going to actually show you something. I'm going to put something up in front of me. For me, I think that when it comes to, this thing about being your own boss and managing our own business, there are a number of things that really are key factors here. The first thing you can see here is about energy, space, and time. And of course, we've got to be really, really mindful, isn't it, about how we manage our energy, our own relationship with space, and space is going to be a real key issue at the moment, as many of us find ourselves pretty much in lockdown, and time is kind of finite. Can you see also along here, what I've got is a different kind of diagram here, which is again looking at the amount of content we've got, and it's looking about again at energy, space, but it's also looking at things like our own expectations and other people's expectations. But I want to start us off with this picture here. And this picture here that you can see is really looking at space, structure, and serendipity. Now, my take on these things as a coach is that really these three things are three really important elements: space, structure, and serendipity. And I want to talk a little bit about them. First of all, space. I have a saying that you can't pour more water into a full cup without causing a spillage. So having space is really, 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 really important to start off with. Content is meaningless without space. Of course, we're going to need to have some structure in our routine. And the bit about serendipity, which I'm going to come back to, is about those happy accidents. But let's start off with space. We need to have clear headspace, don't we? And right now, you're probably thinking about things like your working space, so that you can be comfortable and so on. So space is incredibly important for us as human beings. So for some people, it's very much an internal thing. Actually, is my head too noisy? Is it too crowded? For some people, it's very much a physical thing, the rooms that they're in, whether there's too much clutter. And for other people, it's very much a very literal thing about the environment. And so right now, the period of time that we find ourselves in, whereby many of us will be very much limited in terms of what we can do, and our movement is very, very, very important. My first tip really to you as entrepreneurs is that we need to put in the you time and the you space into the diary first. If we don't do that, then it's not going to happen. So it's really important that we begin to think about yourself and what space you need, and the you time and you and your energy. So tip one really here is thinking about yourself. What is the time that you need for you? What's the time that you need for yourself, for family and loved ones, and the things that are really important for you. And because if we don't put those things in our diary first, the risk is building a business, being our own boss, that those things just won't happen. And those things actually need to start most intimately with yourself. What's the time that you need for you? And with regard to this picture that I was showing before, the bit about energy, space, and time, some of you might be thinking, well, you know what, Rasheed, for me, the starting point is even more energy than it is space, because I realized that if I don't get the sleep that I need, I don't have the energy, and then et cetera, et cetera. So I want you to begin to think about, for you, which of these is the most significant and relevant starting point for you? Is it energy? Is it space? Or is it time? The thing we need to be mindful about with time is that time is finite, okay? So that time is finite, and what one person can do with an hour might be completely different to what another person can do in an hour, and it might depend on your energy. So actually, very often, energy and space is where we should start thinking about if we're wanting to be far more effective with time. Just as we're beginning to settle in here, I wonder if anyone else has got any other comments of things that they're wanting to add in terms of what they're wanting from today. I'm just going to read a few more of these comments out so we can feed them into today's talk. Yeah, so Andy had said, yeah, very interested in hearing more about everything that is on the invite. Heather, tips on healthy work-life balance, healthy work-life divide, and how now both are at home. Yeah, absolutely. Hina is saying, keeping a positive mindset whilst working from home. Yes, that thing's coming up a lot. Romeo is saying tips on keeping resilient. And Yuche is saying, keen to learn about setting boundaries while whilst we are a little bit more crowded at home. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. I think one of the things I'm going to invite us to do is I'm going to invite you to just take a moment to pause and to breathe. I'm going to invite us, if you're new to it, perhaps I'm going to invite us just to take a few seconds, just to pause, just to breathe. I'm just here. I'm just going to close my eyes. I'm going to invite us to just take a couple of deep breaths in, breathing in nice and deeply, just being centered. Take the deep breath in, hold the breath, and then when you're ready, just breathe out. Take another deep breath in when you're ready in your own pace. Hold it, because we hold on to a lot of stuff. And when you're ready, just let it all out. And when we're ready, we can take another nice deep breath in. Through the nose, hold it. Noticing all the things that we're holding on to in life, probably far more than we need to. And when you're ready, just breathe out. Let's take another deep breath in. Hold it. Noticing all the stuff we're holding on to, noticing all the thoughts we're holding on to that are rushing around. And then we're going to just let them all out. Take a couple more deep breaths in, your own way, in your own pace. Maybe with your eyes closed. Maybe as you're doing this, I'm going to invite you to just notice the whole body. Maybe just make sure the feet are planted nicely and comfortably on the ground. Twiddle your toes around if you want to. Remember to keep on breathing in and out. Notice the points where the body is connecting with your chair. Perhaps try and straighten the spine. If you might want to shake out the shoulders might be feeling tense. There might be all sorts of worries or woes, or you might be just a little bit tired. Just shake the body down. Be really, really comfortable. Let yourself be comfortable. Let the arms be floppy. And what we're going to do now is just to continue to breathe in and out. But we're just going to gently bring our attention, first of all, to our toes and our feet. Twiddle around the toes and the feet if you're wanting to. Now we're going to bring attention to the space between our ankles and the knees. Again, if there's any tension, just notice it. Just let the oxygen also breathe into the feet, into this area of the legs, so you can just feel comfortable. Again, if you feel you need to shake out the legs, then do. Now we're going to bring attention to between the knees and the hips. Again, if there's any tension, just imagine that we're breathing oxygen into it. Now into the abdomen, reproductive organs, the belly, the stomach. If there's the stomach ache, rumbling, just notice that. Maybe it's time for breakfast, or you wish you'd had that other slice of toast. Now the chest and the heart area, just notice this area. Notice the heart beating. You might even remember that the heart's beating, keeping us alive and keeping us vibrant, doing so much wonderful work. Bringing attention to the back, spine, and the shoulders. You might want to shake the shoulders out. This area can often carry a lot of tension. Now your arms and your hands, let them be floppy. And now your neck and the head. When we get to the head, if there's any thoughts, just notice them and let them just go. Just so that we can be and we can be still. So we can be really present. This is your time for you, your well-being, your inner peace, your compassion for yourself. I'm going to invite you, if you want to, So this is beautiful because no one can see you if you want to open your eyes, or you might want to just stay in this space. I'm going to have to open my eyes because I've got a few more people who are just wanting to join us. Welcome to those of you who just joined us. So sorry that I couldn't bring you in before. We were just doing a little meditation. Feel free, if you could just put your microphones on mute for the time being. So what we're going to do is just go through some of the content, probably between now and about 20 to 11, and then there's going to be plenty of time for questions. I will take any pressing questions before then. But my first tip here is that this thing about well-being, compassion, inner peace, it's got to start with you. It starts with our own mindset. It starts with our own mindfulness. It starts with our own relationship to ourselves. And so your own energy, your own inner space is really important. That time for you. So my first homework task for you is to put in that you time. Imagine that I'm with my hands, imagine that I'm drawing 3 circles. The inner circle, imagine that is you. Imagine the next circle is the inner circle of your nearest and dearest. And then the outer circle would be an outer circle of all your contacts, everybody you know, your customers and all of that. But we've got to start off with you, the you time, the time that is preciously yours. Now, it might well be that now that we're in this pretty much lockdown stage, you might be needing to try and carve out a little bit of that you time. So it might be that you're saying to loved ones or family or kids or what have you, you know what, I just need to have the 10 minutes where I'm at the kitchen table between this time, which is just my time, or before you knock on the door of my study, I need to have between 9 and 9:30 where I can go through things. So I just want you to think about how is it that you're able to carve in that time for you? I think that this is really, 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 really important. Can I just ask at this point, who has a practice where you have time that you've got in your diary for you and your well-being, and for you, perhaps for your exercise and what have you, that you've got this little bit of a routine that works for you? If you have, I'd love to hear from you if you've got a routine, because I think this is really important. And as you're typing, I think my tip is that this you time might include, of course, it might be your well-being time, your exercise time, what have you. I'm personally quite a big fan of starting off with doing something for me before I even start the stuff to do with business. So this morning I went out for, I'm not the world's biggest runner, but you know, gyms and thingy are closed at the moment, so I went for a little bit of run, and I wanted to do it before the parks got very, very busy. So I went for a little bit of a morning run, or I do some exercise at home. So for me, that's really important to me. Let's see what people are saying. Yeah, I make time for YouTube fitness. Also, we've got a few things here. Let's see. It's just saying, not scheduled perfectly, but have some time for exercise and hobbies during the week. Fantastic. Liz, every morning I do mindful practice with a group online. It gets me up every day and is firmly in the diary. Magical. I'm not for 99, love that name. I make time for YouTube fitness, absolutely. Sally, I have 2 4-year-olds, so routines doesn't exist. Right, so Sally, I'm wondering, one of the things I invite you to think about, is there something that could work, or that could work even with you and the 4-year-olds? So I remember coaching a while ago somebody who had a very hyperactive young child around that age. And one of the things that he was beginning to explore was a kind of routine that he could involve his young son with that would give them both a little bit of time to do some exercise. So, but I'm mindful that often if you're very busy and with kids, that this can be a little bit trickier. So it's worth thinking about how could you, it's worth thinking about also what time they tend to get up. Is there any time that you could grab either in the morning or when they go to sleep, if they do ever sleep? Alice says, I have a good routine, but I live alone. So it's more having too much time, and the mind can run wild with too much time. Really interesting. Well, I think what you said adoption law. Sally, you, is that? I was just curious about that. I just want to pick up on something that Alice was saying there. You know, you were saying about having too much time. I want to show this circle again, this about this space structure and serendipity. This is going to be my central tip for us today. For me, I think as an entrepreneur, for anybody, I think there's three elements that really will help us to live quite a balanced, happy life. We need space, we need structure, and the mind loves structure. But we also need to have a little bit of serendipity. So space is the thing we've talked about. That's the you time, the family time. For some of you, it's the time outdoors, the time in nature, the time with loved ones for hobbies, music, you name it, art, whatever it is you might be doing. And some of you might even be reconnecting with those things right now. So that's the thing about space. The structure is, what's the structure that you need to put in place that's going to work for you in your business? Now, some of you are going to have very, very clear timetables for how you spend things, about how you spend your year, what you're doing month by month, and in terms of your for your week. So it's worth thinking about what's the structure that you have for managing your work. Can I just ask, who has quite a clear structure that they have for their business? And it might well be the case that actually you're having to change the structure right now because things have suddenly shifted from being at work. So who has a structure? Because I think that once we've got this sense of our own space and our own well-being routine, and I think that well-being routine is going to look very different for different people. For some of you, it's going to be very much about your fitness, your mindfulness. For some people, it's going to be very much about your hobbies or the loved one times. For some of you, it's going to be a blend of those things. I think those things are very important. But then it's really useful to think about structure, because the mind loves structure. Maybe this is a good moment for me, whilst you're typing in the things about whether you have a structure, to share this with you. It's the thing I say at the beginning of my book, Soul Trader, that there's two things going on in this webinar at the same time. There's the webinar for your head. Your head wants to know, okay, when you give me more tips about managing my time, Rasheed, shall I check the emails after this call, etc., etc., etc. The mind's thinking about how whether it should be updating the business plan and the customers. It's going to be thinking about, you know, whether you should be looking on the government website right now about the income for people who are self-employed. The mind's constantly thinking, it's racing, etc. So there's the mind, which is always thinking, focusing, planning, and then there's a heart, and your heart just wants to be yourself. The magic in life happens is that when we do that which is truest to our heart and do things in a way that's heartful and enriching to us, and the mind does its job. And the job of the mind is to plan, to prepare, to keep us safe as best it can. But the mind works best when it's calm, when it's quiet, when it has had time to rest, and when it's had time to sleep, which is why we start off with that rest and energy. Can I just ask you on that note, who also has a very good, clear sleeping routine? Sleep is incredibly important here. I should have mentioned it even before. A clear routine in terms of sleep and in terms of rest and in terms of regular breaks. So who gives themselves regular breaks and make sure that you get that sleep as well? It's really important. Sometimes we can just feel as though we need to just do all of the hours that that we're given in terms of business. But I have a saying that unless you take regular breaks, you'll break. So that time is really important. Yeah, some of you talking about the structure. I've got a structure for your startup. Quick tip here, if any of you have been on, I'm running also for the library free emergency planning and interim planning session where we touch a little bit on business planning there. I know what tasks I'm doing day to day, but nothing pressing because there isn't any urgency now. Sleep is generally good, but can be temperamental, Alice is saying, yeah. So I think it might well be, depending on where you are with your business sometimes, and depending how you are with your own mind, some of you will feel really that this idea of putting in some kind of timetable will work really well. I think it can work really well, especially in the early days. My tip is that you might want to have just a simple 2-page business plan for your business with some simple goals. If anyone would like a 2-page business plan, if you drop me a line after this, I can send you, I'd be more than happy to send you a copy of it. It basically sets out some key goals for your business. You know, this is who I am, this is my goal, these are my mission, and these are my goals for business financially, marketing, in terms of marketing and operations. It has a strengths, weakness, and opportunities and threats analysis, and page 2 lists actions that you'll do under the same headings. And it just gives the mind what the mind, sorry, I had muted myself by mistake. It gives the mind what it wants. The mind does like structure. The mind likes to know what it's doing from day to day. So I'd recommend that you have yourself that business plan. And then if it helps you, come up with some kind of a timetable. Now that timetable might be very loose. It might even just be that in your timetable, you've got the times that's for you and family times, what have you. See what works for you. Some of you, in terms of this structure, it might well be good that you might be a very traditional kind of person with a very focused diary. I love these kind of, week per view diaries. Some of you might be online people diaries, and whatever tools work for you. The mind loves kind of structure. It will kind of trip you up if it feels that there's no structure at all. It'll be worried that nothing's going on. So even if you're coming up with a structure of, how you're going to be finding new business, tweaking the business, shifting things now that there's a lot of uncertainty in the current climate, the mind will kind of like that. My instinct is that I really want to begin to take some questions now from you. I want to hear if there's any particular kind of questions that you have got, because I'd like to make this really interactive and to pick up on some of the things that a few of you had said about hearing what other things other people use in terms of their well-being. I think that just before, if anyone has got any questions, feel free to either type them in there and in the box, or I will invite you in a minute to unmute yourself. I want to say something here before we do take questions, beginning to talk a little bit about compassion. I think it's really important to be kind to ourselves as entrepreneurs. It can be a lonely life. Sometimes it can be a very challenging one. There can be all sorts of issues and challenges like where we find ourselves at the moment. So I think it's really important to be having a really kind relationship to yourself. The time out, doing things that you like to do, be it like treating yourself to a nice meal, whatever it might well be that is you being kind to yourself. Compassion really does need to start with yourself. Anyone got any kind of questions? Because I really would like to make this kind of free flowing now. We've got a question coming in here from Hina. Have you got any practical tips for students who may be feeling unmotivated and anxious due to uncertainty about their future? Yes, I do. I think that my first tip is listen to your body, not everybody. Really start to develop a really good relationship with yourself. Focus on the things that are within your control. Your own health, your own well-being, you and your family, taking care of yourself. Stay in touch with things like news, but don't get too pulled into it and too drawn into it, because otherwise the head will get lost in all of that kind of stuff. So it's really important. Surround yourself with really good people who have got a positive mindset, who are really supportive of you. Those would be my initial tips. And I think it's really important for you to have a nice kind of health and well-being routine as well. That would be my tip. And to just try and put in some kind of structure, and that structure might include some time where you connect with loved ones, including by video. On that note, one of the things I'm going to invite you all to do, if you're happy to, those of you who've got video, and I want to just prove a point I made in one of the calls I did last time. If you've got a video and if you're happy to, I'm going to invite you to turn the video camera on so we can connect to each other and we can deepen the connection here as we talk about compassion and well-being. Don't be shy, because I know you're all beautiful people. So if you're happy to, I'm going to invite you to turn the cameras on so we can connect and we can share here, particularly in these times of challenge that we find ourselves into. So if you're happy to, turn the camera on and share. Hey, I'm going to invite you to, I think it's Uche, isn't it? Uche, you were with us last time. I wonder if, Uche, is there anything you want to share? I'm going to open, if you want to unmute yourself, anything you want to share, anything you want to ask, or anything that's resonating with you right now? Or are you happy? I'm glad you're happy. Anyone else? Come on, anyone else wants to? Let's not, it's just be the two of us. Anyone else happy to unmute themselves? Okay. Oh, Liz has got to dart off. You've got a client call. You're welcome, Liz. And I'm going to make this available for playback, just in case you want to catch up with the rest of that. Anyone else got any questions or anything else that they're wanting to throw into the mix, or if you're wanting to be here for us to see you, then it would be lovely to see you. Anyone else got any other questions or thoughts, or in fact, or indeed tips? In which case, maybe whilst there are any questions coming in, I want to talk a little bit about this stuff right in the context of where we are right now. I want to talk a little bit about, I think that what's going to be really important is that right now, even for those of us who've got a really good well-being, mindfulness kind of practice, right now, you might find that you're being very much tested because things are changing minute to minute, hour by hour. And I can see there's a question coming in from Maz, so I'm going to come to that question. So I think one of the things is to notice your energy, go with the flow of your energy. A very, very big tip for anybody is notice when your energy is at its best and when your energy is at best for different things. So some of you will be real morning people, some of you might be afternoon people, some of you might be evening people. Try and work with the flow of your energy. So for me, for example, I know that I'm at my best very early in the morning. If I've got what I call heavy lifting things to do, if I've got to write reports, if I've got to do a kind of a proposal, I'm best to do that between 6 and 8 a.m. I can coach, I can train and do other things at any time of the day, but there are certain tasks that I can do at certain times of the day. So I want you to think about what times are you're best for admin, what times are you at your best for marketing tasks, what times are you your best with those kind of complicated tasks. Really get to know yourself and what times of the day you're at your best so that you can put different tasks into different times. Maz, your question here about, have I got any tips in terms of those people living on your own? Yeah, funny enough, Maz, this is a really good question that you ask. And Maz, do you want to unmute yourself and maybe we can have a chat about this at the same time if you're happy to.
Hi.
Maz, yeah, Maz, hi, welcome. So tell us ask your question real time. It'd be lovely to hear it.
Well, I've been living alone for 4 years now, and when this hit, it came as a little bit of a shock in that I created a lifestyle for myself so I'm quite extroverted, and although I live alone and I love it, I now have to be forced to be at home, of course, quite a lot of the time. And it's now kind of flipped on its head, because whereas I was living alone before, I curated this social lifestyle where I could be with lots of people at several different points of my day, and I get my energy from other people. But now I now have to sit with myself more and kind of go more kind of reflective and be more alone.
I hear you, Maz. I hear you. And can you see, Alice is just saying that here's my challenge to you, and anyone who's happy to, I'm going to invite you to turn the cameras on. Now, this is for an important reason. We're social human beings. And so I would say something, my tip here is, hi there, Maz. Thank you so much for saying that. Because it really, what you're saying does chime with me, and it chimes with many of us where we're social people. And do you notice how the energy is shifting? Notice even on this call, as we can see more of us on this call, the energy is shifting because we're social beings. Yeah. So I think, Maz, my first tip would be try and find a way that those people who you would know, try and put in a call, put in a regular kind of FaceTime or whatever call where you can just check in. Because for those of us who are very sociable, that's incredibly important. And try and come up with a routine, even if you might need to shift it and shift it around. Put in a couple of things in that day whereby you might know, okay, at lunchtime I'm going to have a call with my best buddy, and at 6 o'clock in the evening I'm going to check in with family and friends. It will make a big impact. That was my first thought. Anyone else want to ask a question? Alice, you had a question. Feel the same way. Alice, anything you wanted to share or add? Oh, if you just need to unmute yourself, Alice.
I just find that works quite well for me. Is obviously naturally have up and down days, but like on a Sunday night, I just write down what I'm going to be doing each evening in terms of like my exercise routine, and I find that that really helps me like think, okay, well then tonight I'm doing this, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing this, and it kind of like makes the days go a lot quicker when I know what's coming. So Sunday night is like my planning time, even though there's not really that much to plan for.
Really good, and I think that this process is really one, Alice, of and for everyone, of getting to know oneself. Because being one's own boss, we suddenly have to write new rules about how we work and how we work best. So my tip is whatever works for you is what works, and whatever works for you and that gets the job done. So be it that your mind knows, in that case, okay, here's my plan that I've written on a Sunday for how I'm going to manage my day. Really does work. Those of you to-do list people, write your to-do list. Some of you might be people who just completely go with the flow. Know what works for you, and it might even change from season to season. The other thing that I'll say here that's really important, you might even also want to experiment. The environment is really important. You know, which room you're in, or, you know, what angle you're sat at, which chair in the room can make a huge difference. I've got, interesting, for example, in my where I work, I've got an actual office room, an office space. But a lot of the time, and over the last year, I've been most of the time working from my table. I'm actually in the studio, which is a working space, studio space where I see some clients and so on. But because I kind of like the feeling that I'm kind of relaxed and at home. We're all different. Get to know yourself and what works for you. Rosie, I wonder, anything you wanted to share, anything you want to ask or share with us, in which case I'm going to invite you to unmute if there's anything you want to share or offer or ask.
Hello. At this stage, I'm not sure. I think everything's been really helpful. I think I'm in quite a funny stage because I'm actually starting my startup probably in like a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm at the phase of like just trying to get as much advice and support. So when I saw this, I thought this would be really great.
Right.
It's really conscious. I think for me, I think the only thing I struggle with sometimes is I started my planning, but I think it's the energy thing. Because the thing is, a lot of the time I'm really focused, like I'm really passionate about what I'm going to do. So I feel quite positive and good about it. But I think some days I just do feel like really tired. Like
really glad you said that. Really glad you said that. Let's pick up on that, because energy is really, really key. Energy here when you're running your own business is really, really key. So I think the first thing, well done. I think all the stuff that you can absorb and learn during the startup stage is incredible. And they say that many businesses start up during economic downturns like this is looking at. It's going to turn out to be more difficult and challenging times and so on. And you'll learn far more. Those of us entrepreneurs who survive this are going to be far better in business from this. I'm going to show you this. I'm picking up on the thing about energy. Can you see this bit here, which looks at, it's the slide here that is looking at energy, space and content. Now, bear in mind, there's only, the question is, how much content are we trying to deal with? As a business owner, there's always so much content, isn't there, that you could be dealing with emails, calls, this, that, your website, you've got to maybe write proposal, the suppliers, there's this or that. So I have a saying, too much content leads to discontent, but also what's your energies levels like, and what are the expectations like from yourself and others? So sometimes it might be the case that we might need to bring in our level of expectations, or bring in other people's levels of expectations, or be mindful about our energy levels. So your energy levels are likely to vary throughout the day, or at different times, or even at different seasons. Get to know yourself and get to work with your energy. So let's say, for example, I've begun to learn that I'm so much more productive in the morning than I am in the afternoons. So I think for me, the afternoons, it's better. I can coach and train in the afternoons, that's fine. But other kind of stuff I can't really do as well. So for me, I should be putting maybe far more of my calls in the afternoon, far more admin of those sorting things out, you know, all those things, the other things on the list, sorting things out, or housework, cleaning up the house. Maybe I'm far better to try and do those things in the afternoon and accept that. Because for me, probably every 1 hour for me before 8:30 in the morning, for me personally, is worth probably 3 hours afterward. But it took me a long time to realize that. But the energy in terms of other things like coaching, training, is easy. I can do it at any time. So I think that would be my tip. Get to know yourself when it comes to this thing about energy. Because there's this myth that we've got uber energy all the time, and that's simply not the case. And there's a question that Richard had asked here. It helps me to write down the thing I did along with the to-do list. Aha, otherwise I feel that like the accomplishment's nothing in that. That's such a good point. Absolutely, get to know yourself like this. This is such a good point. Write yourself the list of the things that you've accomplished. This is a really good tip here. I'm a big fan of, this isn't directly related to this content, but I've got two tips here. Open a list, open a document, call it accomplishments, and list all the things you've accomplished in life, career, and your business. That will keep you feeling buoyant, right? And also open an email folder and call it feedback. Every time somebody sends you a really nice positive email, put it in that folder, because it will make you feel really good. And it helps the mind feel really, really confident. Confidence has a huge amount to do with this kind of stuff. And also I think our own network, build that network of other people on the same journey, other people you can check in with and people who can support you. Any other questions? There's another question you would ask there, Uche, which is about, we are co-working with flatmates, so I don't want to make too much noise, but I wanted to say that every week my mood changes and I'm trying to accept that this is normal. Absolutely, it is normal. It shifts. It shifts. Kind of accept it and be embracing it. Learn to go with the flow. I have a saying that, you know, be like the farmer. The farmer knows that all of the different seasons will come. Sometimes there'll be a long winter and a short spring, but they get to learn to work with the seasons. And it's the same in terms of your business, in terms of there will be great harvests and then there will be harvests that aren't so rich. Go with the flow, really begin to learn, study the seasons, flow with it, work with the land. I like to see business like that. And the more seasons that you see, the richer the better a farmer you will become from that. Anyone else got any other questions at all? Any questions at all? Yeah, please do.
So in this time where we've been told that we've got an abundance of time and you know, we're also working really hard, but I think there's a little bit of pressure where you should also be, you know, making sure that every hour of the day is spent doing something worthwhile. I don't know if other people are experiencing that, but as someone who is quite driven and ambitious and, you know, needs to fill their time doing something productive, what would you say to me to kind of let me know that it's okay to slow down and calm down and not need to accomplish, you know, writing a book or doing something immense by the time we come out of this?
Yeah, can you see the smiles? Because I can see that everyone else, like each and that's like smiling. Everyone's smiling at you, Rosie's smiling, because everyone resonates with what you're saying. And I bet you lots of people who are just listening to this are nodding at home, and the other people on this call are nodding, thinking, absolutely. So I think there is something about, I think this is why, you know, I want to answer this from kind of the mind point of view and almost from the heart point of view as well. I think the mind, yes, it wants to achieve and it has its goals and so on. So have those very clear goals and the outcomes of what you're wanting to achieve in terms of your business, in terms of from a marketing point of view, financially, operationally, have those clear goals, but know that goals will need to be adjusted and tweaked and so on, so that the mind knows. And then, as Uche was saying, you know, list all the accomplishments that you've made along the way, so that the mind realizes that, yeah, I am making progress and all the rest of it. But then I think there is something about the time and so on. The hobbies, the interests, the family time, the friends time is incredibly important. Okay, albeit during this time, a lot of it's going to need to be virtual. But how I see it is that the time that you spend away from your, be it the exercise, be it the hobbies, playing a game of virtual chess with a friend or doing the yoga or the mindfulness meditation, guess what? I think it adds value. It means that your mind is more calm, you're far more clear. The reality is probably that you'll be able to get far more done in the next hour than you did if you try to press through the next hour. Who's been there before? Who's had that before, where you know you've got lots to do and you try and plow through, and you plow through for an extra hour, and you realize at the end of that hour, you've done really very little. You've been going around in circles, you've been pontificating around that email. So it's about giving yourself permission. Remember, if you are the chief executive of your own business, which basically you are, then you've got to be able to give yourself permission to take that time off. let's see, Sally was just adding a point here. I'm struggling so much with focus and trying to create online training materials, but also a single mum with small children who continually interrupt through the process, argue and create mess, and will not do anything unsupervised. I can't work in the evenings as I barely keep my eyes open. How do I maintain focus and be creative with so much working against me? Sally, first of all, I really thank you for being so honest about that, and I think this will chime with many people, and I particularly admire the mums who are often the ones who have to be and who are the most entrepreneurial, because they've got to somehow make ends meet and make things work. So I think first of all, give yourself a huge amount of credit for all you're doing as a mum and running a business. I mean, that in itself is really, really incredible. So I think the first thing I would say here, and I can imagine you smiling perhaps as I say this to you, is be on your own side, be your own friend. The relationship we need to be with ourselves is best friend, ambassador, ally, beloved, all of those things to be to ourselves, to be really kind to ourselves. And maybe again, it's this thing here in terms, this thing where it said here about, this thing about the energy, the expectation, the content. How much content am I going to do? How much is doable? Of those training programs, what's really doable? What actually might be doable over the next month might be, okay, I'd hope to get 2 programs written. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get 1 of those written because I think that's doable right now, given where the kids are at for this particular space and time. I wonder, can I ask Sally, how old are the kids? I'm just curious about how old they are, because I'm wondering if also how well they might respond to a little bit of chat for them to knowing, okay, this is mummy's time now. And Sally, are you coming onto the line to just speak real time? Is that you, Sally, or is that somebody else? Sally, if you wanted to, I'm happy for you to unmute. Sally, hiya. Hi, Sally.
Yeah.
We can see you,
Yeah,
Sally.
sure.
Do you want to ask?
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, we're breaking up, sorry. They're running around behind me at the moment, so I'm sorry about any noise. Yeah, they're 4 years old, they're twins, they just drive each other crazy. Dad shares some responsibility, but obviously he works as well, we're not together anymore, so it's really hard. We can't sort of rely on anybody else at the moment, because obviously grandparents are out of the way at the moment. But yeah, it's just trying to be creative without arguments.
I hear you.
Mummy, I want this. Mummy, I want this. It's just really hard.
You know what? This is going to seem like a crazy, silly idea. Are there any things that you could put them to work with? So for example, when I'm coaching people right in their business, I'll often get them. Which, you know what I mean? Are there any tasks? I'll often get people to draw what they would. Here's a fun exercise that maybe you could do together. I'll often get my clients to draw, how do they want their life, work, home life, and their business to look? Why don't you draw a picture, get them to draw a picture of that? And then ask them, try and get them involved in some way, shape or form. What's mummy working on at the moment? Try and get them on board. Maybe give them things like even 10-minute little challenges that you've got 10 minutes to grab a little bit of time for yourself. But first and foremost, I think there's something about giving yourself credit. And it might even be, that you might need to right now, because let's face it, we're pretty new into this kind of lockdown time, right? Where it's probably, before, were they going out a lot more? Were they out in the garden or other places?
Yeah, I mean, the lockdown thing is fantastic for me because I'm quite an introverted character, so I'm absolutely loving life, but it's just trying to juggle doing the work with the duo. So yeah, I think that's a big problem. And I think for me as well, I need like quietness to create something in my mind. I need to think things through. I need to hear myself think, and that's just not happening. So that is, it's just how to stay sane, really.
Couple of tips now, and it really resonates. I'd say a couple of tips. Even if we started off with that meditation, and on my, for example, website, if you type in Rasheed Ogunlaru 10-minute meditation, even if you do like a 2-minute meditation. 2 minutes can be really useful. If you could set them to do a 10-minute, 10-minute exercise, and maybe try and get them to do things like a little bit of mindfulness and meditation. Try a few different things out and just experiment with a few different things, but also be kind to yourself. Be really, really kind. And it might well be about realizing what is actually doable. It might be that far smaller chunks are going to be far more doable to get little bits of progress. Anyone else want to share, or any other questions or any other tips, actually, for that matter? Yeah, do you know what I mean? Everyone hears Sally's like, my goodness, if you can do that and make things and be writing these training programs during this time, then that's really incredible. Then that is really, really incredible. I think that, and also, have you got any, one other thing I want to ask Sally very quickly, have you got other people who you know who are other entrepreneurs who you can also chat to? Have you got any support right now? You might put yourself back on mute. So I'm just...
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's a parent and going through this situation where they're not a key worker will completely identify with where I'm at, including my line manager who's also got 2 small children, my colleague. So I think there's a support network out there, but it's just that day-to-day focus is just really hard, because they constantly want to eat, they constantly want stimulation, and I just can't give it to them 24/7.
Yeah, I think
like anybody else.
Right, my tip is, let's see if we can get them to work. When you're doing your to-do list, hey, now Mummy's going to be doing a to-do list. I want you to now write your to-do list. Be really uber creative would be my tip. Mummy's going to do her to-do list for this. What's your to-do list of what you're wanting to do today? And to try and see if differing things, you'll know them better than me, but you might have to experiment with a number of different things to see what might work. Let's take any more last thoughts or any last questions during our time here. Anybody else got any other concerns or any other kind of worries or thoughts? For me, there's something about whilst anyone else wants to either pip in, and again, if you're muted and if you want to unmute and ask a question, or if you want to just type in something too. I think there's something about keep your eye, I want to say something here about keep your mind on the bottom line of what you need the business to do. Of course, we're our own boss now, we need to make a living from it. So if you like, keep your mind on the money, but keep your heart on your customers and on loving what you do. Love you, love what you do, love your customers. I have a saying that there's one thing doing what you love for a living. There's another thing doing what you love with love. Try and find fun ways that you really enjoy of doing your business, conducting your business. Could you, how could you bring a little bit more creativity, a little bit more fun into what you're doing? For some people, it's just dressing up brightly. For some people, it's just making the calls a little bit more light and a bit more informal. What are the things that you could be doing? Actually, let me ask you all this question, actually, now that we're heading into last section. Based on what we've talked about today, what's one thing that you could be doing or doing more of that would just help you, be it with a better sense of well-being, that would help you perhaps with your creativity or to help you in any way? It might be that you're going to take up that hobby of doing, I don't know, your online yoga class, or it might well be that you're going to give yourself half hour to do the piano. Quick tip here also to everybody, give yourself a very clear start and end time to the day. So, and maybe put in, do you need to, for example, quick tip here, and I don't know why I'm saying this, also Sally, a quick tip here, why not also put in a few where you're going to give yourself a few half days off? Little things like that, little tips like that, things that where you can be giving yourself a treat. The mind loves that, ways that you can be letting your mind know that, hey, it's more fun here. Give yourself a half day off. Things like that. But I'm going to invite you, challenge you, based on this call, what are you going to do? I'm going to invite everyone to just type in what they're going to do, and what they're doing might even include, I'm not going to do X, which is on my to-do list. I'm now going to write to-do lists that are only of 3 things rather than 5. What are you going to do based on today's call? So get typing, and that includes everybody who's been listening, Daniel, Heather, Marco, Alex, Unlawful, Shana, Angie, Hinas, Andy, Carol, Marie, what are you going to do? Vlad, Stephanie, Melissa. Alice is going to write a list of the accomplishments at the end of the week. Yeah, things you're doing like that. Timetable and a business plan. Yeah. So if you email me, I'm gonna. This is my email. Anyone who wanted the 2-page business plan. Oh, I've just been reminded of something. We've got the BIPC on the line, haven't we? We have got one thing that I've got to do, which otherwise I'm going to be told off for, is that those of you who, could you raise your hands, those of you who are on the video, who signed up via the British Library's website? Who saw this via the British Library's website? Okay, if you did and everyone else, I'm assuming you did, could you possibly do me a huge favor after this, just for us, to help us continue running these things? They've put a link to a very, very quick feedback form. If you'll be able to feed that in, it helps them to continue to run sessions like this. I'll be so grateful. Let's see what people are doing. Shauna said, I have more structure to work, but less strict expectations. Excellent. Daniel saying, 1, make sure I try again with meditation. 2, do more with the hobbies. 3, put time in the schedule each day. I love that. Fantastic. Vlad saying, I will set an end of the workday time and stick to it. I'm a big fan of that. It helps big time. Make more time for myself at the start of the day, start working. Yeah, and I'm a big fan. It's very specific times. Put in that lunchtime. Allow yourself. At lunchtime, I watch Doctors, the TV show, and I have my lunch break lasts for about 2 hours. You know, allow yourself these kind of things. Remember, as long as you get the stuff done, right? Who's to say how you get it done? I remember once coaching. This is a really important story before we end. I'll never forget this. I was coaching a guy many years ago, about 12 years ago, an entrepreneur. And I used to go and see him at his offices in central London. And he told me once that he'd had this fantastic morning where he had this business morning, he got a new piece of work came in, right? Really good morning. And then he told me the rest of the day, he tried to get stuff done, nothing he got done. He said, you know what, Rasheed, it would have been better if I'd stopped my day at 12 noon. I said to him, well, why didn't you? Now, there's something about just the spirit of that. Now, we might not always do that, but there's something about, I would say, give yourself permission that if you know that you've done some key things and you've done some things to get things moving, to pause, because there is something about an ebb and flow. And I find that sometimes, have you ever had that situation in life where you're trying to constantly make something happen or work and it's just not working, and then you've just got to step back? It's a bit like that. It's a bit like athletes. The muscles actually grow during the time of rest. So rest is as important as anything else. For me, sleep is the most important thing. So as anybody who's not typed in what they're going to do during this time, just to say some tips for me. Again, remember these 3 S's: space, structure, and serendipity. Put in space for you, loved ones, things you love to do, hobbies, interests. Structure, have a simple structure, be a simple timetable of things that you're wanting to do. Some of you might be even more thorough, you know, you might have a per week timetable or goals for what you're wanting to do per year. Those of you who love reading, there's lots on this in my book, Soul Trader. Be mindful about how much content there is and be mindful about your expectations. You might need to reduce your expectations of yourself and everybody else. Be mindful about your energy. Go with the flow with your energy. Be appreciative of yourself and everything you do. Keep those lists of what you've accomplished and keep those feedback lists. I can't believe how quickly time has gone. If anyone's got any very last questions, I'm happy to take them. But I just want to pass on a few other bits of things that might be of use to you. So I'm just going to type in a couple of other things that you might find useful. I'm going to post here a link to my Soul Trader website, which is basically, essentially, pretty much everything on there. Pretty much everything apart from one thing is free. Soultrader.biz is a free resource that I developed. It's based on my book, Soul Trader. And there's a free area with free content. I think there's free meditation. There's, for those of you starting up, there's a series of startup podcasts. I produce a free Soul Trader podcast regularly. Those of you who love podcasts, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on the website too. There's also on soultrader.biz lots of free webinars like this. Of course, you know that the link to the British Library's Business and IP Centre, and they have a whole range of workshops and webinars and lots of other things that they'll be doing free. On Tuesday the 9th, I think, or is it Thursday the 9th of April and Thursday the 16th, I'm running a 3 emergency and interim planning webinar, which we ran before. So you kindly joined us for the first one. We're running that, so you'll see that on their website. And there's lots of other tips and tools available. Those of you on social media, you'll find me on Facebook. I've got an official Facebook page. You'll find me on WhatsApp. You'll find, forget WhatsApp actually. You'll find me on Instagram. You'll find me on places like that. I post lots of self and career development stuff. So there's lots of stuff I post for free just to help people, keep people in a buoyant space. And hopefully in the future, I might see you in some in-person sessions at the British Library. I just want to thank you so, so much for being here. Please, 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 could you follow that link back to fill in the feedback form? Please, please also, my homework for you is that you put in some time off and time for your hobbies and times for interests, or make that call to a loved one who would love to hear from you. So maybe after this call, instead of jumping into a piece of work, why don't you jump into a piece of you time in a piece, a quick meditation, or a little bit of exercise or something for you, or a little bit of time where you can just download this and just be with yourself and with your own thoughts too. But I just want to say a huge thank you from me to you, and I hope to see you online, and take care everybody. Thank you, and all the best with your businesses, and keep me in touch. Let me know how you get on, and all the best. Okay, thank you, Heather. Thank you. Thanks everyone. And I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you.
Thank you.